what we can do as the Interparliamentary Union to strengthen democracy, to promote human rights, to ensure that humanitarian law is respected.
UN Security Council needs a makeover, a comprehensive reform, and India deserves a position there, a role there.
Prime Minister Modi during Operation Sindoor made it amply clear that war has never been India's choice. We are with the side of peace. We are neither neutral nor indifferent. We are with peace.
We would have dealt with US a whole lot on trade and those kinds of things, and that's not as certain these days. So we have to go back and look at our European partners, our Asian partners.
An opportunity to exchange, to have a dialogue, to have a debate on a different.
Hello and welcome. I'm Rashan Gidwani and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the headlines for this hour. President Trump vows to destroy Iranian infrastructure in 4 hours if his deadline passes. Mujtaba remains defiant as the final countdown to the stated military action begins. The Iranian ambassador to Pakistan describes diplomatic efforts to stop the war as positive and productive. He warns that these mediation endeavors are now entering a highly sensitive and critical stage. Reports indicate that Iranian Supreme Leader Mujtaba is currently unconscious amid the ongoing escalation. The sudden medical emergency adds further uncertainty to the regional security crisis. The president vows to imprison the journalist who first reported that an airman in Iran had been rescued. He claims premature news reports endangered lives during the recent rescue mission. President Trump calls out NATO, Japan, and Australia for providing insufficient help in the current conflict. He demands greater military and logistical support from traditional partners during the Iran crisis. Stocks waver and oil climbs near $110 as Trump's Iran deadline nears. Investors remain cautious as Tehran rejects terms amid strike threats. A recent Russian military attack results in the deaths of 3 civilians across Ukraine. Emergency teams respond to the impact sites as intense fighting continues along the front line. NASA astronauts begin their return journey after traveling farther from Earth than any humans in history. The mission marks a major scientific milestone as the Orion capsule departs the lunar orbit. And here are the top stories. We have some breaking news coming in. China's foreign ministry responded to the U.S. ceasefire proposal for Iran today. China hopes relevant parties will seize this opportunity for peace and bridge differences through dialogue. The ministry welcomes all efforts conducive to peace and highlights support for Pakistan's active mediation role. China called for restraint and continued diplomatic engagement amid escalating tensions in the region. Now we have more breaking news coming in. The Israeli military has issued a stark warning to citizens across Iran, telling them to immediately evacuate all trains and stay away from railway lines. The advisory, posted in Persian on social media, warns that anyone near the rail network is endangering their life. The warning is in effect until 9 p.m. Tehran time. This urgent directive comes as the clock ticks down on President Trump's deadline for Iran to end its blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, with Washington threatening to take out critical infrastructure, including bridges and power plants. The rail network now appears to be in the crosshairs as the conflict reaches a fever pitch. And joining us live to shed some light on this is Peter Baum, International Affairs Editor, joining us from London and the Weekly Blitz. Mr. Baum, thank you so much for joining us. Let's dive right in here. Essentially, with Trump's threat, which will essentially take place at 8 p.m. Washington, D.C. time, which is in New Delhi. Do you believe that he will essentially go the distance and this is it? We've seen quite a pattern here of Trump essentially postponing or delaying threats to entirely obliterate Iran. Do you believe that this is the final straw?
Yeah, he doesn't want to, Roshan, that's for sure. What he wants is to end this war, but on his terms. And he recognizes that the Iranians are probably at the weakest that they've ever been since the totalitarian theocracy took power some 50 years ago. The strikes on Iran by both the Israelis and the Americans, plus the domestic opposition, have had huge impacts, as we know, on Iranian society, the Iranian economy, from which it will take decades to recover. So Trump feels naturally that he's in a position of power, and his very strong rhetoric about obliterating Iran is something that he doesn't want to go ahead with. He doesn't want to achieve that objective. What he wants is for those within the Iranian infrastructure who still have some sense of authority, those currently negotiating via Pakistan, will adhere not to every of his points that he proposed, but at least to the majority of them, which will give Trump the political confidence and satisfaction not to go ahead with the military objectives, which are still a possibility, but one I'm sure he doesn't want to proceed with.
Mr. Baum, you essentially mentioned there that Iran is at their weakest right now. Of course, in the last few days, we've seen that Iran's MIT has essentially been bombed. So they're essentially crumbling, right? They're falling to their feet, but they're still maintaining their stance, even though Mojtaba Khamenei has been is reported to be unconscious. What do you believe their intent is as far as not being submissive to the U.S. and Israel and not surrendering? What do you think they're looking for? Is this just a game of essentially who will win and then who ends up having that political prowess and that might and that victory, or does it dig deeper? Tell me more.
Yeah, Roshan, that's a very good question, and let me put it into a nutshell for you. Trump recognizes that a propaganda coup for the Iranians would be survival. They will show to those who are anti-Trump, those who, I think they call it Trump derangement syndrome in the West, all Trump's enemies, that just by surviving would be seen as a victory for those in the anti-Trump camp. Of course, it's not, neither militarily, neither socially, neither culturally, neither economically. Iran, let's face it, has been absolutely devastated, but they will show to the world that just by surviving and just by having the ability to fire the odd one or two missiles that get through to, say, Israel or the Gulf states, the anti-Trump globalists will see that or will pose that, show it as a victory for Iran, but of course it's not. Now, Trump recognizes this, so going back to my previous point, as long as he can dictate the terms of the ceasefire, he will be able to show that to his domestic audience that the American military and he as a politician would have achieved their objectives. Now, the Israelis clearly understand this as well, and that's why I think we'll see before the deadline expires that the Israelis will go in as hard as possible within the next 18 hours to create as much havoc and do as much damage as they possibly can, because they realize that when that deadline expires, it could be that the Iranians adhere to the vast majority of Trump's wishes, and the Israelis don't want to take that chance.
Mr. Baum, please stay with us. We'll be right back with you. Next up, at least 15 people have been killed and 20 others injured in overnight U.S. and Israeli airstrikes near Tehran overnight. As per reports, the attacks targeted residential areas in the districts of Shahryar and Baharashtan. 6 bodies have been recovered from under the rubble of buildings in the city of Pardis, east of Tehran, while local officials have said 9 people were killed in an Israeli air attack on a residential neighborhood in Shahryar in the west of Tehran province. These attacks occurred as the conflict entered its 38th day, following Iran's rejection of a 45-day ceasefire proposal. U.S. President Donald Trump has set a final deadline of 8 p.m. EDT on Tuesday, April 7th, for Iran to fully reopen the Strait of Hormuz. He has warned of the complete demolition of Iran's power plants and bridges if the deadline is not met. In response, Iranian officials have called for human chains to protect these infrastructure sites. Now joining us live again to tell us more is Peter Baum, International Affairs Editor from the Weekly Blitz, joining us live from London. So of course there again with that development, more casualties, more injured, more wounded as we have those images up on the screen. So of course very unfortunate situation in Iran. Let's dig deeper into what you mentioned earlier about Trump's terms. Do you believe now, and we've discussed this before as well with the unipolar world that we live in with Trump as well, these terms and what he essentially wants from Iran should be kind of set forth as a draft of sorts? And who do you believe needs to step in to essentially finalize it? There have also been developments from the UN Security Council as far as no force being allowed, but till date, they haven't been able to essentially stop any sort of military capabilities or military attacks and aggression against Iran. So what would these terms be in greater detail? Can you elaborate on that some more, please?
Indeed. Effectively, what Trump wants to achieve is regime change, but he understands that there's such a depth of infrastructure created with Iranian government and within the Iranian constitution that only a referendum amongst the Iranian people will achieve that complete objective. So he's shrewd enough to understand that the regime change will happen after the military operation has been completed. So what he wants now is to ensure, as he's done in Venezuela, that just by, in Venezuela's case, by taking out Maduro, he can now work with a government which is still soft left, but more compliant to the American political elite. And that's exactly what he wants to achieve in Iran. He understands that he may have to retain people within government who are still theocrats, but ones that he will work with and ones that will be more compliant with the American way of doing things until such time as a referendum is undertaken, which I'm pretty sure will happen, let's be realistic, 6 to 12 months from now.
Mr. Baum, please stay with us. We'll be right back with you. Next up, Pakistan's diplomatic efforts to end the Iran conflict have reached a critical and sensitive stage, according to an Iranian envoy. The envoy stressed that Pakistan is working closely with all relevant parties to push for a ceasefire and de-escalate tensions. Pakistan has been engaged in back-channel talks with both Iran and US-led coalition forces seeking to create a framework for negotiations that could lead to lasting peace. The envoy noted that the current moment is delicate, warning that any misstep or delay could risk further escalation. He emphasized the need for all sides to act with restraint and to prioritize diplomatic dialogue over military action. The envoy also pointed out that the ceasefire proposal must be implemented quickly to prevent additional casualties and humanitarian crisis. And now joining us live to tell us more is Peter Baum, International Affairs Editor, joining us from the Weekly Blitz in London. Sir, so yes, you just mentioned that time frame, 6 to 12 months. Let's continue this conversation. To me, it seems like, yes, of course, there will be this essential, not debate, but back and forth between these two nations. Essentially, President Trump and whoever is the supreme leader of Iran to essentially rule the world, but with the intent of who rules the Strait of Hormuz. And with Trump's comments about essentially telling Iran that he would take all their oil, it seems as if the Geneva talks, and now that we're in the 38th day of the war, that Iran simply doesn't want to give up, one, the Strait of Hormuz, and two, essentially their oil supplies, which essentially are the same thing. Can you speak on that to a little bit more with this development as far as Pakistan mediators are concerned, that a ceasefire may not be reached if that is the truest intent of President Donald Trump?
Yeah, two things here, Roshan. The first thing is the Iranians' ability to keep on producing and supplying oil. And it's clear that given the attacks overnight that the Israelis made on the Iranian petrochemical factories, and given Trump's threats, the Iranian ability to continue with decent production is going to be severely damaged. It has already been damaged, but damaged even further if Trump's threats prove to be true and if the Iranians don't adhere to the vast majority of his wishes. Now, in this respect, excuse me, Pakistan, quite remarkably, and to everyone's surprise, has taken over the role of being the mediator. She has literally kicked Turkey, Qatar, Oman, and Egypt into touch, and now both parties are heavily reliant on Pakistan being a mediator. When we talk about winners and losers in this war, Pakistan have definitely come out shining due to their mediation role, which has surprised everybody. And I assure you that those other countries I mentioned that formerly did present themselves as being mediators have been sent off with a flea in their ear, and they don't like it. But going back to the mediation and the talks, if Trump can persuade via Pakistan the Iranians to adhere not to every single one of the points he's made, and we understand there have been 15 or 20, and some of them have been somewhat diluted in the last couple of days.
Right.
But if the Iranians can be pragmatic enough to say, look, we either go this way or we run the risk that more military action is going to devastate our country, then that's where we are at the moment. The next 18 hours are absolutely crucial. And if I'm on this program tomorrow, we'll be in a more, we will have a more clearer position of what will be. Now, it could be Roshan.
Yes, sir. Actually, I'm so sorry. That's all the time we have. We'll speak soon when we have more developments. Much appreciated. Next up, a fireworm of controversy is sweeping through Capitol Hill this morning as a growing chorus of lawmakers calls for the removal of President Trump from office. The frenzy was sparked by an explosive Easter Sunday post on Truth Social, where the president declared today, Tuesday, as Power Plant and Bridge Day in Iran. Trump warned Tehran to open the Strait of Hormuz immediately or face, quote, hell. Congresswoman Yasamin Ansari and other prominent Democrats, including Ilhan Omar, are now urging the cabinet to invoke the 25th Amendment. They argue the president's rhetoric has crossed a dangerous line into threatening war crimes against civilian infrastructure. While the White House dismisses the calls as repetitive political theater, the nation is watching closely as the president's self-imposed deadline for Iran ticks away. And now joining us live to tell us more is Keith Vaz, former British foreign minister, joining us live from London. Mr. Vaz, pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much. Essentially, yes, this is Bridge and Power Plant Day for Iran. Tell me more. What is your insight and perspective on how this will all play out in the next 18 hours or so, please?
Good morning, Roshan from London. Who knows? This is a fascinating time in international politics, but a very worrying time indeed for the people of Iran and also those in the region. I've been talking to some friends of mine who are in Dubai, and they are very, very worried indeed, because the fear is if there are any further attacks on Iran, Iran will respond by attacking other countries in the Gulf region. So we are in very, very dangerous territory. I think the 25th Amendment issue is obviously all that the Democrats can do at the moment. In the end, it is for the cabinet to make sure that this happens, not for Congress, men and women. But the fact that it's being raised now is important and relevant. But as you said, Roshan, today is, and the next 24 hours are crucial, not just for that region, but for world peace. Because if we are to believe the stories that have been circulating, then the colleagues of the Americans, like Britain and France and Spain, have decided not to allow their airspace to be used for any bombing. So this is, you're right, a very critical time, not just in the history of the region, but in the history of the world. And I have never seen anything like it in quite this way.
And of course, it is quite worrying, especially because the attacks, when they were first launched on the 28th of February, they were surprise attacks. They essentially totally misled the world into believing that the Geneva talks would bring about a diplomatic stance, right? So like you just mentioned, you spoke to your contacts in Dubai as well. Do you believe that, yes, then that Trump, when he does or possibly attacks Iran, that the entire region will be affected? And of course, this will reverberate globally. Of course, we're seeing global oil prices rise, gold is steadying, but essentially the ramifications of this will last 2 to 3 years and even longer. What are your thoughts, sir?
I think you're absolutely right, Roshan. You've explained it very eloquently. It will have ramifications for the whole world. As well as talking to people in Dubai, I was talking to people in Thailand, and they are being affected because, of course, Dubai International Airport is an international hub. It's one of the busiest airports in the world. It could well be the busiest airport. But the fact is, so many of the flights go through Dubai and then end up in other parts of the world. Emirates is a very, very famous and very successful airline. So as soon as you stop the Gulf, then, or travel to the Gulf for whatever reason, then you stop the onward travel to other countries. And this is causing a massive increase, not just in oil prices, but if, for example, we try to go to India now or some other country, it will be in the Far East, it will be extremely difficult. I also understand that people traveling to the United States are finding it very easy to get in there. I went a few weeks ago, just after this crisis began, and it took me 30 seconds to go through immigration because there was nobody there. Normally, I'm in a queue that lasts at least an hour, but it just, that people are just not traveling. So the knock-on effect for the world economy goes beyond oil. It goes into the way in which people book hotels, the holidays they go in, the destinations they choose. Instead of going abroad, they go to Italy, for example, or other European countries. This is a dangerous time. But you know what is so strange, and I've never experienced this in foreign policy before, is that there is nobody challenging what's going on. NATO obviously is too afraid to challenge the Americans because of the risk of tariffs. Other countries, the UN has shown itself to be toothless. We are now, can you imagine, the future of the world rests on the shoulders of the Prime Minister of Pakistan. I mean, I thought I'd never see a day like this when that kind of stuff would happen. But this next 48 hours is going to be absolutely crucial. I
Yes,
don't
sir.
think that
Mr.
the
Vaz,
35th
I'm so
Amendment...
sorry to interrupt. We do have to cut to another story. We'll be with you shortly. Thank you. Please stay with us. Now we have some news coming in. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance is due in Hungary to back veteran Prime Minister Viktor Orban, a key European ally of the Trump administration, in a tough parliamentary election. Vance is expected to address an election rally with Orban in a football stadium in Budapest later today. Last month, U.S. President Donald Trump said Orban had his complete and total support in a video message to the Hungarian Conservative Political Action Conference in Budapest. The 12th April election is billed as Orban's toughest challenge in a political career going back almost 40 years. On Sunday, he faces Peter Magyar, a former insider in Orban's party Fidesz, who broke with him 2 years ago to found the center-right Tisza party. Orban's friendship with Trump goes back to 2016, when he was the first and only EU leader to back Trump in the U.S. presidential election. That friendship has flourished since then. Orban strongly backed Trump for re-election in 2024. And now joining us live again to tell us more is Keith Vaz, former British Foreign Minister, joining us live from London. Sir, so sorry to interrupt you. Of course, I'd like to just add on to what you just mentioned and, of course, reiterate those points that you essentially were able to walk through immigration in the U.S. a lot quicker than you used to, which led me to my question, and especially with this latest development with Viktor Orban as well. On one hand, we have the U.S. and President Donald Trump who used to be viewed as a country where all nations, not all nations, but all walks of life and ethnicities used to be able to essentially communicate and get together and cooperate. Whereas now we're seeing a world that is so fractured, like you just mentioned, where your friends and contacts around the world are essentially scared for their lives, right? About how the war will play out and how even relations between different ethnicities might play out moving forward. Of course, with the deteriorating reputation that the Middle East and the West Asia war has given that part of the world. With Viktor Orban now essentially running for office and America supporting him, do you believe that this might trickle down to an effect where America in future elections might not have as much say as they once used to, they had today and moving forward, given that Trump has also alienated a lot of European countries in the last 38 days? What are your thoughts, sir?
Well, Roshan, I find this extraordinary that the Vice President of the United States, in the middle of a war, is going all the way over to Budapest in order to support a candidate in an election in Europe. I mean, if I was a Hungarian, obviously clearly I'm not, I'd be thinking, what on earth is the American vice president doing here, trying to influence, because that's what he's trying to do, trying to influence an election in the European Union. So I think this is a double-edged sword. There will be people who'll be pleased to see J.D. Vance, but you know, what is the point of going over there? If he's going to support Orban, it looks as if Orban is in desperate trouble. I mean, of all the people in the world to bring to your rally, would you really bring the vice president of another country? What are the people in Hungary going to believe, that Hungary is going to become a satellite state of the United States? Hungary is an essential part of the European Union. We believe in having democratic elections with other countries not interfering. I think it's very strange that this is happening at this particular time. And I think that they will probably regret it. Of course, if he wins on Sunday, for the last 20 or so years, Orban has been a very important part of the landscape of Hungary. What are they going to say? Thank you very much, Donald Trump. What are they going to give back in return to Donald Trump?
Right.
So this is a very, very odd situation where someone is flying over in this way.
Right. Mr. Vaz, always a pleasure. We'll speak soon. Much appreciated. Now, more breaking news coming in. Iran's ambassador to Kuwait has urged regional states to seek a solution to the escalating conflict. The call comes ahead of a final 48-hour ultimatum issued by U.S. President Donald Trump. The ultimatum demands that Iran reopen the Strait of Hormuz and agree to terms acceptable to the U.S. by 8 p.m. Eastern Time on April 7th. Authorities warn that failure to comply could lead to the complete demolition of Iran's power plants and bridges. Next up, 3 people have been killed and a dozen more have been wounded in Ukraine's Centro-Sal region of Dnipropetrovsk after a Russian drone targeted a bus stop in the frontline city of Nikopol. Dnipropetrovsk's Regional Military Administration head Oleksandr Hanzha denounced the attacks in a post on his official Telegram channel. Hanzha has said that the drone targeted a moving bus as it was pulling into the stop to pick up additional passengers. More breaking news coming in now. U.S.-Israeli airstrikes on residential areas in Iran's Alborz province have killed at least 18 people, according to Iranian state media. The fatalities include 2 children, highlighting the human cost of the ongoing conflict. According to state-linked Fars news agency, the deputy governor of Alborz province confirmed the deaths and stated that 24 others were wounded in the attacks. The airstrikes targeted multiple residential locations, causing extensive damage to homes and infrastructure and prompting local authorities to rush the injured to hospitals. Iranian officials have called the attacks a brutal assault on civilians and warned of further repercussions if hostilities continue. Now, more breaking news coming in. Alexander Avdiv, the regional governor of Russia's Vladimir region, has said that Ukraine strikes have killed a 12-year-old boy and his parents in their apartment. Local officials have said that the boy's 5-year-old sister survived the strike on the Alexandrovsky district in the west of the Vladimir region, but suffered serious burns and was being treated in hospital. Next up, rapper Offset has been hospitalized after being shot in Florida, local authorities confirm. The incident occurred during the early hours, prompting first responders to rush him to a nearby hospital for emergency treatment. Authorities have stated that Offset is currently stable and he is receiving medical care for his injuries. Police say the circumstances surrounding the shooting are under active investigation at this time. No suspects have been arrested. Officials are appealing to the public for any information that could help identify those involved and assist in the ongoing inquiry. Fans and fellow artists have taken to social media to express their concern, prayers, and wishes for the rapper's speedy recovery. Now, that's all we have time for. Stay tuned for more from NewsX World for updates from around the world.